staff meeting. I was supposed to talk about your success, our success. I can confirm it, guys. I would like to thank you all, the team of LEVC. Great performance. We are going exactly on target, and we will be all rewarded if we achieve target. Guys, you did a great job. We're going ahead in that direction. Be confident in what we do now, because we have a very special opportunity today. We do my star speech next week. I will tell you all the stuff in more detail, but you can be already quite happy. But today, we are very honored and pleased. We have a very special visitor with us. There's not much more to say from my side. Guys, please welcome our Prime Minister.
Thank you, Jörg. Thank you very much, Jörg. Thank you, everybody. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's absolutely wonderful to be here at LEVC. And I want to congratulate everybody here in this building, all the staff, for what you do to make these incredible machines with their lovely traditional contours, burly, bulging, faintly reminiscent of a black bowler hat. But underneath the familiar silhouette, there is now technology so advanced that this machine can take you silently from Uxbridge to Upminster, I think I'm right in saying. Silently from Uxbridge to Upminster with barely a puff of CO2, in fact zero CO2. So that these taxis are beginning to cut thousands of tonnes a year from London's carbon emissions. I think 10,000 tonnes per year. And they're not only popular with the travelling public, but popular with taxi drivers themselves. And believe me, they're a pretty demanding clients, I happen to remember. So in its ambition and in its daring, I hope you will not mind, Jörg, if I identify this machine as a symbol of the type of politics that I believe in, my type of conservative politics, what I stand for and the approach that I want to take, and what we as a government have to offer this country in just a few weeks' time. Because I believe the job of politicians is to drive change. And I was, you're not going to believe this, I was the midwife of this taxi. I was, or one of the midwives. I'm going to come to our investment in midwives later on. It's going to be very considerable. But I remember going to see Chairman Lee in Beijing in 2008, and I had my first meeting with him, one of several meetings, and he said then that he wanted to buy the company that made the London taxis. Some of you may remember this. And I said, fantastic. Let's make them in Britain, because I wanted to be sure of that. And Chairman Lee said, yes, he would. And then I chanced my arm because I was determined to tackle air pollution in London. And I said, fantastic, let's make them electric, zero carbon. And Chairman Lee said he would see what he could do. And he said, we will research it. And I have to tell you that at that time there were plenty of cynics, not least some of the other manufacturers who said that diesel was the only way to go. And they said there wouldn't be enough sockets for the plugs and that the battery would be so heavy that the taxi wouldn't move. Well, I don't know where they are now, but I hope that they are eating their words, ladies and gentlemen, because you here at LEVC are making thousands of these wonderful machines here in the West Midlands, home of the first industrial revolution. We are seeing a new industrial revolution, a green industrial revolution, creating thousands of environmentally sustainable technologies and thousands of jobs. A glorious rebuttal to the skeptics who said it couldn't be done. And in our world-leading technologies, from batteries to bioscience, the Britain of 2019 is in many ways a crushing rejoinder to the post-war pessimism of so many in the British establishment who then believed that this country was fated to decline. Because today, the UK boasts more Nobel Prize winners than any country except the US. We dominate the global pop music charts. We even dominate, I saw, the market in Hollywood superheroes, with British actors playing both Spider-Man and Superman. Under this government, we have an economy. I'm going to take credit for it. Under this government, we have an economy that has grown solidly for 9 years, 20% bigger than it was in 2010. And yesterday, it was announced that the rate of unemployment has fallen to a low not seen since 1974. But, you know, there's still something frustrating for me about this recitation of our country's triumphs, because it is a story of an economy that is still not achieving what it could, of a country like a cup-winning racehorse trying to run on 3 legs, with so much more potential waiting to be unleashed. And that is why it is the mission of this One Nation Conservative government to unite and to level up across the whole of the UK, ensuring One Nation Conservative, ensuring that everyone has safer streets with 20,000 more police, lifting up funding for every school in the country, massive investments in health so that you don't have to wait to see your GP, providing vastly better infrastructure, investing in skills that drive up productivity and drive up wages, biggest ever increase in the living wage we've announced to £10.50, so cutting the costs of living across the country. And that is the One Nation programme on which this government is embarked. And yet, my friends, here in Rugby, by the way, I pay tribute to Mark Pawsey, who's the local MP, and he would want me to say that. My friends, we are, it does a fantastic job. We are blocked. We are stymied. For the last 3 months, we have a parliament where there is no majority, since I've been in office, no majority to take forward those people's priorities, a paralysed parliament that refuses time and again to honour the mandate of the people and to deliver Brexit. And that is why we need this election now. That's why we need it. We've got absolutely no choice. We must get Brexit done because we're Democrats. And there are millions who want to get Brexit done because they voted leave and they believe that the EU has become something very different from what it was when we signed up for the common market in 1975 with the first referendum. And then, of course, there are huge numbers who may have voted Remain, but who just want to respect the result of the referendum. And after 3.5 years, they think it's time for the wrangling to end. And I don't know about you, but I'm with them, aren't you? Yes. We have to get Brexit done because it's the best thing for our politics and for our psychological health. We have to get Brexit done because it's also the best thing for the economy. The uncertainty has become almost unbearable. People can't make decisions. They're hanging fire, waiting to hire new staff, waiting to buy new property. The UK attracts huge quantities of foreign direct investment, 92 billion last year, more than any other country in Europe. But right now, there is a pent-up tidal wave of new investment, tens of billions that could come to this country in the next few months from people who see that we have the right time zone, the right language, great universities, fantastic skills, and they're just waiting to greenlight their plans. And if we could get Brexit done, we could end their uncertainty. And let me make no bones about it, one of the most important reasons for voting Conservative and to help us to get a working majority is that we can get Brexit done now. We have a deal. We have a great deal. It's ready to go. Just add water. Stir in pot. It's there. The skeptics said it couldn't be done, and they were totally wrong. This deal allows us to maximise all the opportunities of Brexit, from free ports to free trade deals, from cutting VAT on tampons to banning the cruel export of live animals. We can take back control of our money, our borders, our laws. We can take back control of our immigration system and decide democratically who gets to come here for the good of the UK economy. And it gives business complete stability and certainty as we make the transition in January and come out. And the best thing, as I say, is that it's done, it's complete, it's ready to go. It's the Blue Peter deal. Here's one I made earlier. All we need is a working majority. All we need is a working majority in Parliament to make Parliament work. Just 9 more seats, and we can deliver Brexit in January and get Parliament working for you and unleash the potential of the whole country and get on with our agenda. And the only thing that held up that deal in Parliament, you may remember, and tripped us up at the final hurdle was, yes, I'm afraid to say it, Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. And what exactly does Corbyn want? What would he do in the Corbyn-Sturgeon coalition that would actually, that I think is his only means of forming a government in this country, his only path to power? Well, if only we knew what he would do. The only hard crouton of fact in the great minestrone of muddle that constitutes Labour's Brexit policy is that he wants more delay, turning 2020 into a year of 2 referendums, as Nicola Sturgeon confirmed today. One on Scotland, on which Corbyn's position is veiled in mystery. Does he want to protect the Union, or would he join Nicola Sturgeon in trying to break up the most successful political partnership of the last 300 years? Who knows? As for his position on the EU, it's positively mind-boggling. He wants to negotiate a new deal. At least he wants another 3 months to negotiate a new deal. And then he wants to spend a further 6 months asking the public to vote on his deal in yet another toxic referendum campaign. And we don't even know what his own position will be. Will he campaign against the new deal that he hopes to secure? Is he for leave? Is he for remain? Or is he like Schrodinger's cat, capable of occupying 2 contradictory positions at once? One thing is clear. The Sturgeon-Corbyn alliance would consign this country to months, if not years, of dither, delay, discord, division. When every month of pointless delay, insisted on by Corbyn, by the way, is costing this country £1 billion for nothing to stay in right now. And think what we could spend that £1 billion on, my friends, every month. That's a net contribution, by the way, £1 billion per month. That's almost 20,000 police officers, £1 billion. We need to get Brexit done so we can spend that money on our priorities, end the uncertainty, and get on with our programme of uniting and levelling up across the whole of the UK. Because if the potential of this country is enormous, then so frankly is the injustice. Some regions are 50% less productive than London. There are some parts of the country where people's lives are a decade shorter than in other parts. Educational outcomes can be vastly different. Imagine if every child had the same start, the same encouragement. Think of all the untapped talent in this country. And yet the solutions to that inequality are within our grasp. Our ambition is to unlock the whole nation's potential through infrastructure, better education and technology. Not just to close the opportunity gap between rich and poor, but also between the regions of this country. We're so ambitious, we believe we can close both gaps at once. Not by decapitating the tall poppies, but by spreading equality of opportunity. And there are some things that I think everybody should have as a matter of right. Freedom to walk the streets without fear of crime. We need to stop our kids getting sucked into the county lines drugs gangs, don't we? We need safer streets and proper punishments, and that means a government that funds the police and that backs the police. And that's why we've already begun, not just by investing in the 20,000 officers, but also backing them up with proper powers to do stop and search, tougher sentences for serious sexual and violent crimes. Of course, the best way to stop kids getting caught up in crime is to give every child in this country an excellent education. And that is why we are boosting per pupil funding so that each pupil gets a minimum of £4,000 in primary school, a minimum of £5,000 in secondary schools. We're putting about 780 million more into special educational needs schools. We're spending £2 billion in rebuilding our further education colleges, because they're a vital part of our educational system. It's not just about university, it's about giving kids across our country the skills that we need. And as we leave the EU, we will insist that all big public sector projects must hire British apprentices so that they can learn new skills on the job. And at the same time as we improve education, we are ensuring that people are able to exploit the opportunities that are available to them, literally to find the work, the great jobs, the high-skilled jobs, conveniently and affordably. And the only way to do that is to invest in superb transport communications. And that's why this government is embarking on an infrastructure revolution. And yes, that means some very big projects. I've done loads of them in London. Fantastic new electrified rail. But it also means now investing in the simple improvements to their lives that people have been craving. Modernising roads and junctions that have become bottlenecks and sources of massive local frustration and economic inefficiency. It's about better bus services, which can make all the difference to people's lives and prospects in towns and villages and rural communities. Better cycleways. I'm glad to see some nodding there. Cycleways not always popular with the taxi drivers, in my experience. But that's what we need, better cycleways across the country. And I want every home, every business in the country to have the confidence and convenience that comes with gigabit broadband, 5G and 6G mobile telephony. And that is how to unite the country, to bring us together, infrastructure, education, technology, and to raise productivity. That is how to create a platform for growth. That's what the role of government is. And if you create that platform for growth, then the market will respond in two vital ways. If you have good transport and safe environment and good schools, then suddenly the market will find that it can build thousands more homes, superb, affordable homes, on brownfield sites, giving young people the chance to have the keys to their own property, which every survey continues to show is one of our most fundamental instincts. And we will help with a big expansion of part-buy, part-rent schemes to help people get onto the housing ladder. And if you have safe neighbourhoods, decent housing, a skilled workforce, good transport links, then what else happens? You get business investment, you get confidence, and you get jobs. And that's why you need a government that believes in business, that understands wealth creation and the need to support family business and cut business rates. There have been 1.4 million businesses created in this country since 2010. 1.4 million. Napoleon said that we were a nation of shopkeepers. And I think that's an insult that we can take, isn't it? And he was right, by the way. There've been more businesses created in this country since 2010 than by France and Germany combined, I'm proud to say. That is the balance and the symmetry at the heart of our one nation conservatism, between fantastic public services, building the platform for growth, and a strong, dynamic market economy. And what I say, when people get up at the crack of dawn to get their business ready, when people take out a mortgage for a new venture, when people have the guts to put a new product on the market, we don't sneer, we cheer for them. And to make sure that the businesses of this country can continue to innovate, I'm announcing that this government, if we're re-elected, will not only invest more to support electric vehicle technology, we will double funding for research and development to £18 billion in the next Parliament, the biggest ever increase in support for R&D. And we proudly back businesses across this country because they are creating the wealth that actually pays for the NHS and everything else. And they are helping to create the jobs. And I'm afraid that is the key difference between us, a one-nation Tory government, and the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. It's not just that Labour would be an economic disaster for this country because they would delay Brexit yet again. They would simultaneously wreck this economy with a £1.2 trillion spending splurge that would be instantly rejected by the markets, that would massively increase not just this country's debt, but also the cost of this country's debt, like taking out a mortgage to pay for your groceries. And they would make it impossible to make future sensible investments that this country needs in the NHS and other great public services. And to pay for it, they would put up taxes on every household in the country to the tune of £2,400 a year. In fact, they were themselves so worried about a run on the pound that John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, has already said that he's actually going to impose exchange controls on this country again. Can you imagine? The only countries that have exchange controls these days are places like Angola, Zimbabwe, and Venezuela. You guessed it. Well, do we want to have our economy run out of the playbook of Bolivarian revolutionary socialism? I don't think so. We can't let it happen. But that is the choice at this election. You can come with us and have a government that backs our armed forces as a power for good around the world, or you can have Jeremy Corbyn, who said that on the whole he wants to scrap them. You can come with us. We support the police in fighting knife crime. They say stop and search is inappropriate and oppressive. We want higher wages and raising, as I say, the living wage by the biggest ever increase. Corbynomics means higher taxes for everyone. We know that the only way we can make our huge investments in the NHS is if we also have a strong and dynamic market economy. And John McDonnell has literally said that he wants to foment the overthrow of capitalism. That is his mission. So he says, we stand up for the people of this country when other nations threaten us with harm, and it was quite incredible when Russia ordered the Salisbury poisonings. Corbyn seemed actually to take the side of Moscow. Above all, we will get Brexit done and unleash the potential of the whole country. They want dither and delay, deadlock and division, doubt and despair, all of which will go with another referendum. And I say to you all, let's give that madness a miss. I want you to imagine what this country could be like in just 10 years as a result of the decisions we are taking now and have taken over the last 3 months. I want you to look forward to a Britain where the streets are safer, where the air is cleaner, where we have built 40 new hospitals as a direct result of the programme on which we've just embarked, the decisions we've taken, a Britain where the 10-year-olds of tomorrow have benefited from the funding for literacy and numeracy that we're unleashing today. An opportunity is being spread across the whole country, and where in 10 years' time scientists are starting to reap the huge rewards from our plans to double funding for research, and businesses as well, from space to artificial intelligence to a gigafactory for batteries that we're going to build in the next 3 years. A Britain where we are uniting and levelling up across the country, where great new infrastructure is helping to rebalance the economy, where we are delivering northern powerhouse rail and a metro-style system for the whole of the West Midlands. A Britain where left-behind towns have recovered their vibrancy and commercial life, with shops and businesses made possible by better transport and fantastic broadband, and with responsible local politicians who know how to champion their communities and to build thousands of superb new homes on brownfield sites and plant millions of trees. Not just because they're beautiful, but because they will help us in dealing with flooding and with climate change. I want you to imagine a Britain whose regions experience a renaissance at the same time as our incomparable capital city lengthens its lead as the financial, business, tech, artistic, cultural, academic capital of Europe, if not the world. And in 10 years' time, I confidently prophesy that we will all be citizens of a proud, strong, and whole United Kingdom. More united than ever, flying that red, white, and blue flag that represents the best of our values, from democracy to the rule of law, from free trade to free speech, to the freedom to love whomsoever you choose, from tackling climate change to protecting the wildlife of the world from the tragedy of habitat loss and extinction. And a Britain that is able to lead the world, as we do, in tackling climate change and to reduce our CO2 to net zero by 2050, not because we hate capitalism, not just by gluing ourselves to the tops of tube trains or whatever, important though that may be to make a point, not because we want to destroy market economics, but because it is precisely through the brilliance of companies like this one that we can make the technical breakthroughs that enable us to cut CO2 and go for carbon neutral by 2050, and, of course, that help us to pay for great public services and to create wonderful, high-skilled jobs. And that is the vision that we are offering, to make this country the greatest place to live, to breathe, to be, to raise kids, to start a business, the greatest place on earth. Greatest place on earth. Not necessarily the most powerful, the greatest place on earth. And I propose that we get on with that project now, don't you? Let's not hang around. I don't want to waste 2020 with 2 more soul-destroying referendums. I want the next year to be an exciting year and a productive year, a year of prosperity and growth, a year that is about the people of this country and not about its politicians. And I ask you finally, do you want to wake up on Friday the 13th and find a nightmare in Downing Street, a nightmare on Downing Street, a Corbyn-Sturgeon Technicolor coalition of chaos? Is that what you want? No, it certainly isn't. It certainly isn't. I think it would be a disaster for this country. So let's thank you all for your time. Let's go forward with sensible, moderate, one nation but tax-cutting Conservative government and take this country forwards over the next 10 years. Thank you all very much for your kind attention this afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you everybody for your patience, particularly those who are standing at the back. I've got a list of journalists and media who are down to ask questions. I'm going to go first to Laura Koonsberg of the BBC.
Thank you thank you very much, Prime Minister. You clearly want to talk about Brexit every time you're in front of a microphone. But today we've seen voters in Yorkshire be very unimpressed by your handling of the floods, and several of your former colleagues who were even Conservative ministers suggesting that people should think seriously about voting Lib Dem. Do you think you're in control of this campaign?
Well, thank you, Laura. Just on the floods, I think it's very important to say that you know, I've been twice now, I think, in a week to see what's happening in South Yorkshire and in Derbyshire and in Nottinghamshire. And I want to pay tribute, first of all, to the emergency services for everything they've done, the police, fire brigade, the army. Last night we sent in, as you know, 200 light dragoons who are doing a fantastic job in remediating some of the flood defences in the Don Valley. I've had a chance to thank them today. But you know, my really strongest impression is of communities coming together and helping each other. And I want to thank all those communities I saw today in Stainforth and Fishlake and elsewhere. I think people are really showing the best spirit of this country. I made clear throughout my time there, obviously, the government stands ready to support in any way that we can, and I hope that people understand the messages of reassurance that we've been giving. Nobody can underestimate the trauma of being hit by a flood. I mean, the anguish of people who suffer flooding is really terrible. We are compensating with funds for homeowners, funds for households, and also funds for businesses as well. And we stand ready to ensure that where there are gaps in the insurance or where there are problems with insurance, then we will sort it out. Your second question was about the election. And all I would say there, Laura, is, look, of course we need to get Brexit done, and I make no apology for mentioning it, because it has been paralysing politics for 3.5 years. And I'm afraid to say that the only way to get Brexit done at this election is to vote for the Conservatives and to hope that we can get a working majority, because a vote, alas, for any other party, a vote for any other party would simply lead to a premiership of Jeremy Corbyn in coalition with Nicola Sturgeon, and as I said earlier on, 2 referendums next year, when I think the people of this country really want to make so much more progress on other things. Paul Brand, ITV.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Prime Minister, you're pitching your Brexit message partly at our viewers in the north of England, but many of them have now been underwater for the best part of a week. If you want their vote, they feel badly let down. So will you apologise to them? Well,
Paul, as I've just said, I think that the government and the local authorities, the emergency services, and indeed the voluntary sector have really been working flat out over the last period of days to get people back on their feet and to try to sort out the consequences of the flooding. And again, I'm not in any way going to, people must understand, being hit by a flood is a terrible thing, and a huge amount of work is going on. I think the most important thing is that people understand the financial compensation that is available. I've explained that already to various of your colleagues who are actually at Fishlake and Stainforth today. We will, as a government, ensure that everybody is protected. I would just say this, we as a country need to be investing in the long term in flood defences. We've already put £2.6 billion in as a government, and by the way, we've ensured that places that are particularly vulnerable in the north of the country do get more per capita than other places, but there is much more work to be done. That's why I stress the importance of infrastructure. We need to be investing in flood defences, flood banks, protection of all kinds. It's why I also mentioned the importance of planting millions of trees. People don't often talk about this, but in the long term, it's not an immediate solution clearly, but in the long term, we are going to need about the whole way in which we manage our landscape and we manage water in our landscape, because you just have to look around, fly over the UK at the moment, fly over parts of Britain, and you can see that the threat of flooding has by no means gone away. So we need short-term recovery, but also a long-term plan. And at the risk of being political, again, you need a government with sound management of the economy that can make those long-term investments without prejudicing the UK's financial position. Thank you. Beth.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Beth Rigby, Sky News. Prime Minister, you talk about your One Nation agenda, but David Gauke, who was in your cabinet, or in the cabinet not 4 months ago, says you winning this election would be a bad outcome for this country. He says people should vote Liberal Democrat if they want to support the centre ground in politics. Why should the public trust you to lead the country if those who have worked at your side don't? Thank you.
Well, I think, Beth, if you look at what we are doing and what we have done since I stood on the steps of Downing Street, this is a one-nation government that is driving the people's priorities, whether it's investing in 20,000 police officers or the biggest ever increase in NHS funding for a generation, or raising the living wage by the biggest amount ever. This is a government that is determined to get on and deliver the priorities of the British people. And the thing that's blocking us at the moment, as David and others know very well, is that Parliament won't put Brexit through. That is the problem. And the reason we need to get Brexit done is because then, as I said, the whole country can move forward. We will unleash investment into this country, and we'll be able to get on with delivering on all the priorities of the British people. We must end the paralysis in this Parliament. And I just say respectfully to David and to others what I said before, unless you vote for a working majority Conservative government, you end up with a coalition led by Jeremy Corbyn and years, as far as I can see, of paralysis. We want next year to be a year of prosperity and growth, not 2 referendums. I'm going to go to Rachel Stretton of the Coventry Telegraph. If she's here. Rachel, sorry.
Hi. Hello, Prime Minister. Given that Coventry City Council is receiving £120 million less core government funding than it was 10 years ago, and this year is facing a £16.7 million funding gap, what would you do to decline local authority budgets?
To restore local authority budgets?
To restore the local authority budget.
Sorry. Rachel, what we're doing is we're putting huge amounts more into local government, particularly as a first stage into social services and social care, because we recognise that is where that things are really have been pinching. We're trying to help in all sorts of ways. But Rachel, I just get back to my main point, which is that the best way we can support the council in Coventry and indeed across the country is to get the tax base that will enable us to fund all kinds of great public projects. And you won't have the tax base that is necessary if you go on a £1.2 billion spending spree, if you put up corporation tax to the highest level in Europe, you put up taxes on employment, on businesses, on pensions, on inheritance, and that, I'm afraid, is the plan of Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. You need sound management of the economy to be able to deliver for local government, and we will. We've made a first start with £1.1 billion going into social care, but there's a lot more, obviously, to come. Jack Doyle, Daily Mail.
Prime Minister, Jack Doyle from the Daily Mail. Earlier today, Jeremy Corbyn questioned the US government's account of the death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS. Do you think he was right to question that account, and do you agree with him that the ISIS leader should have been detained and arrested?
Well, I haven't seen exactly what the leader of the opposition said, but look, you've got to be realistic about the threats that this country faces, whether they're from Iran or from Russia, or indeed from international terrorism from Daesh, from ISIS. And al-Baghdadi, let's make no bones about it, was an absolutely diabolical foe of this country, of our values, of our liberal values, of everything that we believe in and support. And he was responsible for untold murders. I have to say that I do not think it realistic to suggest that he could be just apprehended by the police in the circumstances in which he was finally, or by anybody, in the circumstances in which he was finally run to ground. And I think it's very important when you look at the threats that this country faces, that we are realistic about what we must do to be strong in the face of those threats. And I must say, I think that if you're correct in what you say, which I'm sure you are, about what Jeremy Corbyn had to say, I think his approach is naive, and it's naive to the point of being dangerous. Tom Newton-Dunn of The Sun.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Tom Newton-Dunn from The Sun. There's about 23 hours left before candidates have to be registered for the deadline tomorrow afternoon. 23 hours left for Nigel Farage to withdraw from your precious marginal Labour targets. What is your final appeal to him to do that? And secondly, you called Jeremy Corbyn an onanist, a masturbator, in speech extracts last night, which seemed to have disappeared from delivery. Is that just the language of ordinary people, or...? What did you mean by that?
Sorry, well, thank you, Tom, for... let me deal with the point about the election first, if I can. And I just want to say about Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party. It is always a very difficult thing for any party leader to withdraw candidates from an election. I understand that, but all I can say, Tom, for the avoidance of doubt, to repeat my central message. There is only one way to ensure that we get Brexit done, get this thing finished, get us out, do a fantastic free trade deal, and that is to vote for us and for the Conservatives, because you vote for any other party, you risk a coalition of chaos and two chaotic referendums next year. And on your second point, all I can say is that a stray early draft seems to have somehow found its way into your otherwise peerless copy by a process that I don't pretend to understand, but I will make inquiries, Tom. Sam Lister of the Daily Express.
Prime Minister, if Nigel Farage fights the marginal seats tomorrow, puts the candidates in tomorrow, it's risking you securing the majority you want. Is he putting Brexit at risk, or can you give a clear guarantee that whatever the circumstances, if you are returned to number 10, you will take us out on January the 31st?
Well, I can certainly say that, Sam, that just to repeat the crucial point that I've already made to Tom, and at risk of belabouring this, there is only one way to get Brexit done, and that is to get us a working majority, get us a parliament that is working for you, take us out. When we got the deal ready to go, as I say, slam it in the oven but before Christmas. We can come out in January. A vote for any other party, alas, any other party, a vote for any other party simply means dither and delay and two chaotic referendums next year. I'm going to last question now to Paris of the Scotsman.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Paris Gortsianis for the Scotsman. Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn has ruled out holding a second Scottish independence referendum next year. In fact, the only people talking about it in 2020 are you and Nicola Sturgeon. Aren't you misleading the voters by suggesting there will be two referendums next year? And what do you say to those who believe that your party's relationship with the Brexit Party is just as shady as any deal between the SNP and Labour?
Well, just on the first point, the only way to I think I may have said this before, but the only way to deliver Brexit, get Brexit done, is to vote for the Conservatives. We are fighting every seat and fighting them to win, and we don't do, as I've said many times, we don't do deals with other parties. We're the oldest political party in this country and in Europe. We believe in fighting elections across the whole nation as one nation Tories. On Nicola Sturgeon and the Corbyn-Sturgeon alliance. Well, first of all, you've got Corbyn himself saying that he's not at all averse to having would have a referendum, but not immediately in the next Parliament. That's what I think he has said, or doesn't necessarily want to have it immediately. But you've got Nicola Sturgeon, who is his route to power, who is his path to power, who is his yoke-mate of destiny, if he were to form a government, saying that she wants it next year. And Paris, I just humbly submit to you, it's hard to see how Jeremy Corbyn could very easily turn her down if that were to be the condition that she were to put for a coalition, as indeed she surely would. So what we're faced with is a second referendum on the EU with all the toxic torpor and tedium and division and rancour that it would involve, and a referendum on Scotland when, as you know, Paris, and as the people of Scotland were told at the time, it was meant to be a once-in-a-generation thing. In 2014, they were told that if they voted to remain in the United Kingdom, the question would not come back again for a generation, and they did. And I really think that this country as a whole has had enough of referendums of this kind. We want to get on and deliver on the mandate of the people of 2016. We want to get Brexit done and unleash the potential of this whole country. And the potential of this whole country has never been more perfectly represented. I'm going to wind up now with this final point, because I don't think I've got any more questions to take from the media. But the potential of this country is perfectly represented by the electric vehicles that are being produced here at LEVC. And, you know, people said it couldn't be done. They said they were technically impossible. They are being made. They're fantastically popular, and we are going to boost and turbocharge, if you can turbocharge an electric vehicle, which I don't think you can turbocharge an electric. Well, someone's not. A technician is nodding at the back there. Maybe you can. But we are going to boost that incredible opportunity for this country. Thank you all very much for your time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.